Hi everyone! So after I had made my roll pinning video a couple of weeks ago, a lot of you had asked whatever happened to my Wrinkly Pig corset. So I'm going to be doing a case study on it today. So here's the front, side, back, other side. So right away you can see that I made a few changes to this corset over time. The first thing that I did was I raised the hips a little bit because it used to be a bit of a long line corset. Now I've raised it to be over the hips so it's a little bit more comfortable now. I've also changed the binding. The binding used to be made out of the same Chinese brocade fabric here, but it was fraying really badly, and I was going to get more of the same fabric and do the binding over again, but it was just so flimsy that I thought that it would probably be better if I just put on a commercially made bias binding just made out of cotton, because then it's not going to run the risk of fraying so much, it's not going to be quite as fragile. And then the last thing that I did was I made a modesty panel here in the back, stiffened and suspended, made out of the same fabric. Okay, so I am going to admit that I am slightly embarrassed by this corset, but I'm showing this to you so that you can learn from my mistakes. So starting with the material of this corset, it is, I guess you can consider it 4 layers if you include the interfacing. So I had fused some lightweight woven fusible interfacing to the brocade, and then I flatlined that brocade to 1 layer of couture. And then when I actually assembled it in the sandwich process, there's another layer of couture. So there's actually 2 layers of couture in this corset. For the construction of this corset, it's made from a 6-panel pattern, so it's 12 panels total. And like I said before, the construction of it was constructed using the sandwich technique. So that means that between all the panels, it's lock stitched, and it's very strong. When I first started making corsets, I didn't know whether lock stitching was worse off than top stitching. I thought that maybe it would put too much stress on the thread, but I am actually very impressed at how well this corset has held up. So lock stitching is definitely very strong technique. So basically I assembled the top layer, which consists of the brocade, the fusible interfacing, and 1 layer of couture. I assembled all of that in 1 layer, and then I assembled the lining, which is another layer of couture, in another layer, and I sewed them all together, right sides together, sort of like a pillowcase. And then what I did was I flipped it right side out, and then I stitched in the ditch so that all the layers of the corset were together, and then I made boning channels and stuck the bones in between the 2 layers of couture. And there is a waist tape in this corset. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it is 1 inch wide twill tape, and it's sandwiched between the 2 layers of couture, so it's invisibly stitched. And when I had stitched in the ditch and made the boning channels, that secured it in place in between the 2 layers. Binding, like I said before, is made out of a commercial pink bias tape, and I had basically folded it under, stitched it down on the front side, and then I tried to, as neatly as possible, fold it under on the underside. And then instead of top stitching here, I stitched in the ditch just between the binding and the corset to basically secure it down on the back. And I've also made a modesty panel here. It's a stiffened floating modesty panel attached by Grommets here, and it's made pretty much with the same fashion fabric. However, it's from a different bolt, so the color is just very slightly off, but if you're not paying attention to it, then you don't really notice the difference. However, I did not make any placket underneath the front. So the busk here is a standard flexible busk. It's 9.5 inches long and just 1/2 inch wide on each side with 5 pins, and so you can see that it is a little bit bendy. However, this was before I started making my corsets with heavy duty busks, and I thought that standard flexible busks were fine for my purposes because I naturally have a pretty flat abdomen, so I don't really have to worry that much about bowing outwards, especially if the corset is a little bit shorter like this one. However, that's not the case for everybody, so that's why I tend to use more heavy-duty busks in my sewing these days. There are 22 bones total in this corset, mostly double boned on the seams. So here's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 here, and those are spiral steel bones, so there are a total of 18 spiral bones here. And then sandwiching the grommets, those are another 4 flat steel bones. For the grommets here, I used 32 part size 00 grommets, finished in gold. The only reason that I did it in gold was because I didn't really have any other grommets at the time. So it's 15 on each side, and because the holes are a little bit smaller, I had a bit of a hard time threading fatter cord through, like my usual paracord. So I just decided to use these ribbon laces that are about 1/2 inch wide, double-faced satin, and they're a pale pink, sort of to match the rest of this corset here. So that's the end of the case study for this Wrinkly Pig. I hope it was informative for you, and I hope that you can learn through my mistakes so that you can make better corsets without all the wasted time. So if you liked this video, then please let me know, and I'll see you on Monday for the next corset review. Bye!